Informative, educational, objective, inclusive, comprehensive. This is Progress Report. Updates and conversations from the Government Information Service.
Good day and welcome to another episode of Progress Report. My name is Ivan Khanna, my lovely co-host Gleneva Hodge, and we are honored, I can speak for both of us, yes. We are honored today to have one of the most prolific radio personalities. I think he's so much more than that. He is a man that is, in my opinion, and you can write this down, quote me on this, he's the epitome of journalism in the Eastern Caribbean. And I say that without any qualms and no disrespect to anybody else. If you know anything about his career and what he has meant to the field, you would say that too. So I'm hoping before we get into some matters on the ground that we can touch those things today. And that is the person of Mr. Keith Stone Graves.
Thank you very much.
Did I say that correctly?
Yes, Keith Stone Graves. Thank you.
So let me ask you a question just so we can break the ice. Right?
I know that was coming.
All right, tell me about the nickname Stone.
Well, that's a long story, but to be brief, it's a story I got from my school days in Montserrat, going to secondary school on the cricket field. I was always very tough. I was avid, cricketer. Played for juniors, played for my national team, senior national team as I was still in school. And the stone thing came into it because they just could not get me out of the wicket.
Oh, boy, I figured.
I was tough. I was batting a lot of times without pads and tips and so on. I wouldn't flinch. I never ran. The faster you come,
harder they come, the harder they fall.
Yeah, you're going back to the boundary. So that's where the stone came in. Boy, this man is like a stone wall.
Nice.
You can't move him. He's like a rock.
But I don't think much of that has changed. Not in cricket, but in other areas, to be honest. Because he's solid. He's solid, right?
Ivan, I am so glad you asked that question because for years,
yes.
you would not believe that I thought his name was
Keith Stone.
No. A lot of people make that mistake. It's Keith. Stone is the pet name.
Yes.
And incidentally, and I always tell people this, when I was at the BBC, there was another Keith Graves. He was in one studio and I was in another studio, so the distinction came in nicely. So you had Keith Stone Graves and you had Keith Graves, both presenting, both going out to different audiences at the same time.
Oh, wow.
So it worked very beautifully there.
Amazing.
and it stuck.
But the stone has stuck with
the
you.
stone has stuck with you. All right. So let me ask you something. You just mentioned the BBC. I don't think people understand how far, wide, and deep your career has spanned where radio and journalism is concerned. Give us a snapshot.
Yeah, I get this all the time as well. I started out, I always had a love for radio. I listened to and monitored the BBC from the time I know myself. I was always into the BBC and radio has always been my passion. In school, when the other students didn't know what they wanted to do, I told my teachers, look, I want to be a journalist, I want to be a broadcaster up front. So in school, I had my subjects carefully tailored to this profession, which I've been in now for over 40 years. All right? So I started, when I was in high school, I still used to go to the national radio station and help out. Get the wire clippings and carry them into the journalists.
Nice.
Take them home after the day, at the end of the day, and read, practice to write. Then I would I bought myself a little tape recorder, and I would go high up in the mountains in Montserrat, all by myself, by a little brook. And I would sit down and just practice calling words, reading to myself, tape it, play back. Carry it to a friend of mine, listen, critique, play back. And it all started. Then professionally, I started in 1978, straight out of high school. After I'd finished my exams at the secondary school. Didn't even know my results. And I was fortunate to have landed at the best radio station in the Caribbean at the time, Radio Antilles. 200,000 watts of real broadcast power. And I got in there, myself and another gentleman who lots of people knew about, Albert Dubai Richards, who hosted this big show, Caribbean Togetherness in Montserrat. So we started out at the same time. And so I came to Radio Antilles. Julian Rogers, my mentor and still my good friend, he was the manager in charge at the time. And I remember coming in the first day, and Julian took me into a room, and Julian gave me a script and tell me, read this script for me, young man, a new script. And after I read the first line, he said, stop. And Julian had this big voice, stop, big Barbadian voice, booming sound. Said, stop, you're hired. Got in the newsroom. That was it.
That was it.
So I started with Radio Antilles in 1978. I worked my way right up. I started out as a junior journalist, sports editor. Then I worked my way right up to when the station closed down because of the volcano. When the volcano came in and destroyed the studios and our antenna system, I was the general manager. Then after that, then I went to the BBC, spent some time at Bush Out at the Caribbean Service, rising up to the rank of senior producer. Presented a lot of the Caribbean programs back to the Caribbean morning and evening, and doing some of the specials with people like Debbie Ransom and Ken Richards and many of the folks there at the BBC. Then after I left the BBC, I came back. The BBC asked me to come into some of the Caribbean islands to do some training. So I've been up and down the Windward Islands and the Leeward Islands doing training, young journalists programs and coverage. But at Antilles, Radio Antilles, I covered a lot of stuff. I traveled extensively. Also for the BBC, traveled extensively, covering things and training. So after that, then I went back to Montserrat, did some work there with the local station, did a little bit of TV. Never really loved TV. I always like radio. I like being behind, not being seen. I'm camera shy. I just like you to hear my voice. So I did that. Then I came to Anguilla and started it all over again, just continued the process. So radio has been my life. Some television when I was at the BBC, but I never really liked it. I always preferred radio. Plus I write a lot. I was stringing a lot at the time for the Associated Press, for Reuters, for the Caribbean News Agency, for Agence France Presse, for EFI, that's the Spanish news agency. I was doing work for Voice of America, Radio Canada International. And during the volcano, I was just swamped. I was reporting for stations from all over the world during the height of the volcanic crisis in Montserrat. So I've done a lot of that kind of work. Now I'm just easing back a bit and helping and wanting to train people and see young journalists come and blossom, share some of my vast knowledge and experience and bring them up to speed. So that is what I'm on towards the end now, the twilight of over 40-year career in broadcasting and journalism.
Man, I am thoroughly impressed, and this is not just now. This is not just now being impressed.
I agree. You know, and what most people don't know, we do very quick pre-show briefing. It's probably 2 lines, and I said I think this show is the one that I am most intimidated by. And
no man, you shouldn't be.
But the reason is because, like Ivan,
it's a conversation.
It is, but like Ivan rightfully said, in my view and the way that I see things, I think when I think of journalists, you are the epitome of what a journalist is expected to be. You carry the ethics, and I've had the pleasure of being interviewed by you several times. I've had the pleasure of having a very brief training with you, and so to be sitting somewhat on the other side, it feels like it's come full circle.
Yeah, I'm humbled, man. And I'm grateful for the compliments. I feel very humbled.
Yes, but in all that you've spoken about and where you've come from and how, and throughout the years, I'm sure you've seen journalism change, media change.
Big time.
How do you feel about the changes that have happened and continue to happen, the move from traditional media into now the whole Boston scene with social media? How does that play in to your career as a journalist?
It has happened so quickly. Sometimes I have to sit up and just say, wow. Coming from the traditional, the tape recorders, editing, splicing, to now you go and everything is done digitally and so on. So it's been a massive, and it continues, It's evolving all the time. The traditional media, as I always say, has its place and will continue to have its place.
Right.
The other newer style, newer branding, social media thing, and citizens journalism and broadcasting, that's taking over now and coming to the fore. So I've seen a transition from one, but it has happened very quickly. And if you're not careful, you get swamped up into it. But there's some basic tenets that remain.
Which are?
And I come from the old school. Getting your information correctly, researching, studying, understanding what you're doing, and realizing that it's a privilege that you might have access to radio station, television station, newspapers. It's a privilege and it ought not to be abused, and you have to know how to handle it. This journalism thing and broadcasting is very, very, very serious business. This is not a place for jokey. It's serious. You carry a lot of weight in your hands.
True.
And with that, coming with that is, big word, don't hear it often enough, responsibility.
But the sad
responsibility.
The sad part is
you can change things. You can shake up this country just like that.
But some want to abuse that power.
And that is where that is where I differ, and I have serious differences.
So what do you say to the folks that gravitate to journalism that is not responsible?
I would say you need to stop it. One, in this profession, you need to be trained. It's a specialized area that calls for training, just like any other profession. You need to go to school and go through and train, get proper training in the basics, the basic things of what to say, what not to say, what you can say, the laws, the ethics, what to write, how you can write a particular story, what you put into the story, the content, how it's edited, how it's phrased, how it is even presented. Because even in your presentation, you can be, you can come across as skewing in a particular direction. Just even your tonal presentations, by the way you present, by the words you say, by just the way you present something, could set off that perception that you're one way, this way or the other. So you have to be so much on top of your game all the time, not sometime. But training is very, very important. You have to engage, you have to allow yourself, put yourself out there to get proper training. There are many of us who started out and you got the rough crash courses and so on. But that is fine, or was fine for the time. But in this modern age, you really have to be, because you have so many things you're contending with, and so much pressure is put on you as a journalist, as a broadcaster, someone in media. So much pressure. You're the most looked out for guy or girl. People, is he creating trouble? He doing this, he messing up the country, he doing that, He against this party, against that party. He not for us, he for us. And you constantly come under that. You're constantly peppered from one side. You do this, you're the best for this side. You do something else, the other side hates you.
You have to be balanced.
You have to be balanced. You have to be balanced. You have to be fair. You have to be objective as possible. You have to be accurate in your information. You have to do proper research, which is something sadly lacking by many of my colleagues.
Yeah.
I'm not only speaking for Anguilla now, I'm speaking because I'm a Caribbean man.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that. I'm a Caribbean. I just happen to have been born in Montserrat, but I say the Caribbean and the world. That is the space in which I operate. I don't, I physically here in Anguilla, but I operate in a regional and international space.
I appreciate that. And to be entirely honest, I'm going to say this and put this on record.
I wonder if you're gonna say what.
This is Gleneva's show. I'm just here to facilitate and add that little bit of balance and that male testosterone to the room. So I know she's gonna take over this interview because
That's fine.
she has a whole lot of questions.
I have no problem.
But
I'll try my best to answer as best
I want to go back to something, and is not to skew, to point, to kind of like twist it in a way. But I wonder, my voice is going. I wonder if persons understand that as journalists, even me. So I had let me give you the
And I want to stop you there. You got to be careful, and I've been very careful in using that word journalist. I'm tagging that to my tagline, 'cause
Okay, good. Because I'm not a journalist.
Okay, that is what I thought.
Journalists is. I see a lot of people
Right.
tagging journalists and references to people being journalists, and that is not quite true.
Exactly. So that's exactly where I was going. I said journalist, and then I said even me. Now, I'm not a journalist. That's why I said even me, because I've inherited some responsibility. I've been tasked with some responsibility, because when we go out, I don't know if Gleneva gets it. No, but the amount of people on island and even in the diaspora listening to this program, it's weighty. It's extremely weighty, the pressure that we're under. But this is what I wanted to get to. Is it possible to turn it off? And when I say turn it off, like, is it possible to turn it off, the responsibility?
No.
And people don't get that. I don't think everybody gets that, because I thought I could.
You're the public relations officer of the government of Anguilla. You have a specific role and certain responsibilities that go with it. That's the job that you do. So whether you're at home or in the office or wherever you go, you're on the beach, people still look at you. They're not gonna distinguish and say, well, boy, this is Ivan Khanna and he's out of his PR suit today. No, that's how they see you. They see me on the street, they see me as a journalist, as a broadcaster.
I had
Whether I'm at church, whether I'm in the playing field or the cricket field, wherever I am.
Man, that's a lot of pressure.
So you just, once you're tagged, you just go with it.
So I had a situation. I was in like a group chat recently, and I usually don't share information in the group chat. I have a broadcast list and then it sends out, but the person that usually would send out, because they're on the broadcast list, they didn't share something. And then I was given a question after I shared a particular item. It just so happened that it was government related. It was just a notification for a show, actually, for your show. And the person came after me, someone came after me with a question. And I'm like, I know these people have each other's numbers, so I was like, you can ask him. Like, I wasn't being disrespectful. And it was like, wow, like who are you? I'm like, I'm not sharing this as Ivan Khanna, PR for government. I'm just in this as everybody else because I needed that little break, but I just shared something.
Perception.
And that's it, perception.
That's
how they see me.
People see you in that role, whether you're on duty or off duty, and you're never off duty really. Once you're in media, you're never really off duty. You're always on it. So that's how they see you as a government. And they expect certain things of you. They expect you to know certain things.
That's it.
They expect to walk up to you and say, look, Mr. Khanna, so, tell me. And you're expected to present them with the information.
But is that
Hence,
fair?
This is why I'm saying, and I'm going to get to that about the fairness. This is why I'm saying that you need to be properly trained. You need to inform yourself. You need to research, and you need to have information at the top of your head. And if you don't, you have to be honest with them and tell me, look, I don't know, but I could find out and get back to you.
You can point them in the direction.
But in terms of fairness, it's just it's just the field that you've gone into. This is what you've committed to, and once you've committed to that, there's no way out. People are going to look at you in that way. As the government's PR man, you're expected. Ivan should know this. Ivan should know this. Ivan should know that.
Well, I should have
so you have to. They expect you to be in the know. They expect you that they call on you. They call you. They meet you on the road or call your office and say, Mr. Khanna, so, and they expect an answer from you, but truthful, honest.
And I don't have a problem with that. But what I have a problem with is,
but that's how they perceive you. That's how they see you.
When you give them the truth, you give them the answer, then they want to turn it into an argument.
Yeah.
You use a term earlier. You said community. No, it wasn't community. So those people,
citizens journalism.
Citizens journalism.
Yep.
Is that why it is when people feel like they have a position or they have quote unquote facts and they want to run with those?
But that's a new era we're into now. The days of citizens journalists, citizens journalism, and citizen broadcasters, and so on and so forth. That is the new realm of the industry. This is where we move from the traditional sort of thing, where you had somebody who went to school, trained, come back, started to write for newspaper, broadcasts, for radio, TV. Now you're taking that space with the onset of the social media and the way things have evolved and moved so quickly. That space is now been filled with the advent of social media, by citizens journalists, where everybody can take up their cell phone, modern cell phone, and go out and capture something, take a video or get some audio and feed that back in real time.
Yes.
Not even like the old journalist style where you go and record and tape and come back and edit and then put out.
Yeah.
Those days are over. Because with the citizens journalism now, long before, when you come later on, you're coming at the back end. The citizens journalists, they have that out in real time. So this is what we're competing with, the traditional journalists versus the newer citizens journalists. This is where the competition is right
My
now.
problem though is the contention that creates.
It does. It's part and parcel of what is happening now, and it goes back. Traditionalists like me, this is what we have to contend with, and this is something I'm coming to grips with, and I have to. You have to just accept it's just the way the world is now. But I would always go back to the basic tenets. The good things, the accuracy, not necessarily, yes, it's good to be first, as we say, it's good to have your thing, good to be breaking the news and getting things out first, but not at the expense
Right.
of being inaccurate
And that's why
and misleading
good,
and
that's,
false.
And that's why you don't answer some things right away.
You need the time, and that
need
is,
the time.
and I don't fault you for that. Take your time and make sure you research.
Yeah,
so when
I
you
would
put it out,
definitely, of course.
you might be slow or behind, but
But it's
you're
gonna be
accurate.
accurate. Yep.
Whereas you take it and you run with it, it's you have to be coming back and correcting
But if
Exactly.
you even
and
do,
apologizing,
if you even do that,
and that is not something
You know what scared me?
good
Not-
people
not
in the
to cut
media.
you
Media
off.
professionals don't like to be coming back and correcting the.
which
you
is
know,
always
That's me naturally, but you know
wanna
what
get it
scared me
right.
about this
Yeah.
entire thing? Like on the first day coming into office, the PAS sat me down and she told me and she showed me that I am bounded by the same
Yeah.
principles of collective responsibility as the ministers. I
Correct.
cannot go there in my capacity as PRO and say something that is not supposed to be said, is not factual, is not accurate, just like the ministers.
Because you're the
can.
bridge,
Between-
legitimate bridge between government and the public. You're that
Exactly.
so anything and everything that you say and you put out, we expect that is the truth and that is truthful, it's supported by facts, it can be backed up, it can be fact checked. That's just what's expected of you.
And that's why.
So it's not an easy. Your role is not easy because you're that link between government. So you're into the briefings with ministers. They brief you on what is happening and so on. There's certain information, and they tell you, well, look, we need to get this out in real time. This is what we want to put out. Then you have to you find that bridge now, and you have to get that out to the public. Public have questions, they want more, or they have questions to ask, they feel that they've been shortchanged. So it's a difficult position. It's not one that one can take lightly.
I'm happy that
it's not one that you can take lightly.
No, I'm not
it's a
taking it lightly.
serious.
And that's the
serious
thing.
work.
And I'm gonna stop you.
No, if you're to do it, if you were to do it properly and professionally, that is it has to be taken very seriously. Absolutely, no doubt about that.
and I agree with you. And the one thing that I would add, and I'm mindful of it, and I'll say this: I have too much respect for journalism as a profession to consider myself a journalist.
Right, me too.
I'm not that.
I'm far from it.
I struggle with any title. I go, well, I'm the co-host of Progress Report. I'm not employed by Government of Angola. I'm not their spokesperson. But I do understand, and when you speak about the role as the PRO, I do also understand that by sitting in this chair next to government's PRO, the perception is that the program itself is skewed as pro-government.
Right.
Because PRO says
Yeah.
a public relations officer,
Yeah.
but it also says pro.
Yeah.
And pro who. And so it's I'm always mindful of that. And again, I respect the field of journalism too much to just throw it out there that I'm a journalist. I'm not.
This is how it has to come out. You're working for the people.
Of course.
That's what it is. Yes, you relate directly to the ministers and other senior officials in government, but at the end of the day, you're responsible to the people. The people are going to hold you accountable. Just as they hold the ministers of government, they're going to hold you because you're the mouthpiece.
Exactly.
Yes.
And the information that you get from them, they expect you that you put out information to them that they can handle, they can deal with, they understand clearly, they're not shortchanged.
Right.
You give them what they need. You give them as much as you get from the ministers of the government, but you put that out there for the people. It's not tainted, it's not twisted, it's just put out.
Right.
You pick it up as members of the public and you come to whatever conclusion you want to come to.
Yes.
That's it.
And I often
You're
tell
not there
people-
to twist it in any way, to
No.
twist it that way. You're just there, you're the mouthpiece, and people expect you as the mouthpiece to bring the news to them
Exactly. Just give me the
Just
facts.
give
and I
you the
will
facts.
Share that.
and leave it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't.
And
I don't need anything.
Let
else.
them pick through and take what they want, reject what they don't want, and so
Yeah.
on. But you just be the facilitator. You just provide the information
Right.
to them and let them do the rest.
We're speaking we're speaking all things media. And one of the things that is interesting about this program in particular is that we cover
Yeah.
different forms of media. So while you can prepare in one way for a radio show, we do radio, we do video, so TV
comes in
YouTube,
there, yeah.
online,
Video
and
side.
then it's also that podcasting space.
Yes.
And I wanted to tie that into what we see happening and with citizen journalism and what the definition of that is. That just simply persons who happen to have been on the scene of a news item or newsworthy item, or is it anybody who have Twitter fingers, someone who have
Yeah.
access to a video
That's it.
and can go live on Instagram
That's
with
it.
their opinions, persons who have access to the new thing, and
Yeah.
going even all the way back to when you said in the beginning you started by just a tape recorder to record yourself and to practice. But nowadays you go and you buy a mic set and everyone is a
That's
podcaster. How do you bring those tenants, and do you think that there is room for legislating, or
It's hard to do.
see
It'd be
right
very hard to do.
to legislate how persons move in that space, because it's no secret we live in an age of misinformation,
Yeah.
and wading through a lot of the inaccuracy. How do you find and what do you say to people who are inundated with so much information, because that is what we're in an age of so much, it's information vomit.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry, but it's so
Yeah.
much. How do you wade through all of that as a consumer? How do you wade?
It's so
through that?
difficult. It's very difficult because you're gonna pick the bits that interest you. I'm gonna pick the bits that I have interest in. Ivan is gonna look at it, but in this modern era, you can't stop it. It's there. It's happening. It can't be controlled because you're bordering on privacy. And so on. I have my thing. I take certain pictures. I'm in a location, something happens, and I take. It's hard to control. Police officers come on the scene, and they have to deal with what they have to deal with, but they're still been videotaped and so on and so forth, and that is going out in real time. There's no real control of it. So it's a difficult era in which we're in. With this, once something happens, somebody with a cell phone that has that capability. and it's going out in real time. How do you stop it from going out in real time? Before it was you had to call a reporter to come on the scene, but I'm already on the scene and I having it there. So even before the reporter or the news crew arrives, boom, you don't get a glimpse of it. So it's very difficult, and this is what the traditional journalists are struggling with. You just cannot beat that. This new era of collecting information. You hope that people will have some decency. That's a hope, you know, in putting out some of these pictures. Some of the pictures you see, some of them are so graphic. You hear expletives being used, and that is going out. But it's just what it is. It's going to be difficult. It's difficult to legislate and to. It's hard because you really can't. It's difficult to stop that. It's just a new dispensation, the new era in which we are in.
It is the realm of social media, because just the last episode, Ivan, we were speaking, and when you thought that Facebook was the it thing, young people are like, "Oh, you're old.
You're old. That's old for you."
You know, when you have TikTok,
Snapchat, and all the others.
Instagram, all whatever else they're using, because
you can't beat it, man.
We've already established.
You gotta get up. You gotta get up to speed. That's what my daughter's been telling me. Look, Daddy, you have to get up to speed with all of this. You know, the traditional journalists just relying on. You gotta get up to speed, and they're correct.
Even in the show,
yes, you got to get up to speed with it.
I remember when I used to go in Heaton, it was just radio, and I would have to record on my own phone if I wanted it streamed.
Right.
Now I go and it's being streamed, and I can just share from my page. So I see where it's the movement, and a lot of times we can focus on the negative aspects of what that means, the citizen journalism, what that means, but we've seen so many positive movements as well that have been born from that. You spoke about recording the police. And those movements that we've seen internationally, the Black Lives Movement coming out of, those were things that traditionally, the traditional media coming on the scene, you would have gotten maybe the police's recollection of how things happen, and it would have been skewed that way. We see it so much more now in terms of how do you as a traditional journalist feel about the way that traditional media is now no longer, I shouldn't say traditional media, mainstream media, and that's the term. The mainstream media, it's now not the be all that ends all in terms of a viewpoint, because a lot of times internationally, not necessarily locally, but internationally, when a lot of the mainstream media is owned by the same sets of persons, their viewpoint is channeled, and that's the one view that you saw. And now you're getting so many different angles.
It mainstream media professionals to up their game in a big way, you know, because of the citizens journalism and getting things out in real time. It just really forces you to keep up. But I would go, and I go back to it again, that the basic tenets, we still keep to the basic tenets of accuracy, making sure you get it right, and so on. You know,
so let me ask
those fundamental things you can't really change. But we're in an era where this citizens journalism, as we call it, has taken over. That is the way things are going, and you can't just get stuck behind in the mainstream media. You're being forced now, not to stray away from the basic tenets, and I keep you hear me talking about that all the time, but to get up to speed and be able to practice in that sphere as well.
Here's my challenge. I think we can appreciate that there's no way to legislatively police citizen journalism.
It's very difficult.
But
almost impossible.
But you have those places in media houses, if you want to call them that have some sort of acts and legislation to be bounded by. Radio stations that want to operate like citizen journalists, if you want to call them that, and not concerned about the accuracy of what they put out.
But there's still laws. There's still laws at the book, that it's not, you're not absolutely free to say whatever you want about everybody and anybody. You're not absolutely free. There's certain laws in the books.
But you would believe that that's
libel
the
and
case
slander
here?
is still very much part of it.
But you believe that doesn't exist here?
Well, that is something that we here have to be very mindful of, and encouraging persons who are citizens journalists and people who want to get into that area to be very mindful, or people who are practicing in that area who to be very mindful of. That while they might have access to a media platform, broadcast station, television station, newspaper access, that libel and slander are still very much on the books. And if you cross the line, you will be booked, and you'll face the harsh penalties associated with doing such. So you've got to be careful that while yes, we have freedom, we talk about democracy, there's a limit. It's not infinite. There's a limit to it. And as I said, the big R that goes with it, responsibility. That you can't just get up and say any old thing you want about anybody and just feel, well, kids. One day or at some stage, somebody's going to wake up and say, look, we got to stop. You've gone too far. We've allowed you so much. You're going to have to prove what you've said about me, what you told the general public, and general public here is the world, because most times you're streaming to the world, and you're going to have to tell the court, present whatever you know in the court, and the court, as the final arbiter, will decide whether you're right or whether you're wrong. And you will have to get into reparation, talks about reparation, which is making amends or compensation. So my advice always is to be very, very careful with what you say and what you write about people. Even photographs, I've seen a lot of that going around of people and so on. You've got to be very careful with that. You've got to be very, very, very careful. So, the freedom is not infinite. And you can't just abuse it. You can't just be out there because I have access and I, just be saying any old thing, any and everything about a person. You have to be able to prove it.
Right.
And I feel like, there's a space where there's recourse if information is put out there against a person or an entity that is not factual. But it's limited because it's limited to, again, a person or an entity. But then persons have the freedom to speak about topics that don't necessarily involve a person.
When you say limit, let me make sure if I'm getting, because
meaning that,
for example, you use a broadcast station, someone comes on, a host, you have contributors, guests coming in. The station can be sued. The station can be sued as a station. The host, the owner, the contributor, and anybody else that passes that along down the chain can be down. Right. It can go on and on and on.
Right. But
Okay?
I didn't mean in terms of who can be held accountable.
Okay.
It was more on the topics on which they speak. So just at the most random, because God forbid, I don't know, someone might be out there saying that the sky is green. And there is no recourse because that's not against it. It's completely false.
Yeah.
But it's not against a person. So there is no recourse for being able to go out and say, I can't sue you for putting out false information. Because it's not against me. It's not against a person that you
Trust
said.
me, a sharp, a savvy lawyer, legal practitioner can find ways. And this is what is happening. There are guys who are trained in that area who practice
especially
media law.
Yes.
Media law, yeah.
Who are skilled at this and who look very carefully at and listen and record and listen to recordings, and who are experts in this field, who can find ways of means of tying things together.
Especially if you cause somebody emotional distress. I've seen some cases like that.
I've seen a lot of those cases, and we've done a lot of those cases in in journalism. school, when you're going through your case studies and so on and so forth, media law, there's endless cases. And this is why I'm saying that we've got to be careful. We're operating not in an angular space, not in an angular space. You're operating in a global space. All right? And once it goes out there, it's gone. You can't pull it back.
Can't pull it back.
It's gone. It's set.
How?
And somebody picks it up and you're live streaming, recording a clip or whatever is made of it, bam. And you have the evidence there, boop, and it doesn't nail you. So you've got to be careful. So you always admonish your contributors, your guests. Look, before the broadcast, or if they're writing something, you tell them, look, let somebody else look over that. Get a pair of legal eyes, look over this for you and make sure that, it's not libelous, you're not slandering anybody. But you always caution your contributors, look, this is what obtains. Yes, we have the freedom to say what's on our mind, say what we think, but it has to be done this way and that way. I would tolerate this. This is as far as we can push the limit. This is not to restrict freedom of expression, and a lot of people mix this up all the time, restricting, and you can't you're trying to restrict. No, there's a limit to which you can go. You can push the envelope afar. I have done that many times. I've gone way, but then I know where he goes stop here, and I pull back in because I know if I go into that territory, I know where I'm going. But there's nothing to stop you to ask politicians deep and tough questions. That's part and parcel of it. Dig deep,
Yes.
but do your research, or you understand what and go for what you want, but you have the knowledge, your information, you have the experience to know, look, how far I can throw. So you understand the laws, you understand the laws of the country, you understand international laws, broadcasting laws related to broadcasting laws, information laws, and you push the limit. Push it as far as you can, but there's a point there where it gets, the lines start to get
blurry.
And you say, look, boss, it's time for me to just start backpedaling. Let me come back in here into this safe space and take it from. But nothing. And this is something I say all the time. Don't feel hemmed in when you interview politicians and other public officials. Go grill them. That is your job. That's the job of a good journalist, a good media practitioner. You grill. People expect that. The public expects you to ask those tough questions to get answers. And the public can know when a politician or a public official is dodging. They're not stupid. The public is as wise as they come. They know. So you do your work. You're doing your work. And the public will support you. Once you're doing your work properly, they will always come behind and say, yes, ask him that. You're right to ask him this one. Dig down some more. Do that, But do your work. Do your research. Prep properly. That is what I'm not seeing a lot of that. Prep. Research deep. Research.
I'm going to tell you.
Prep your subjects. Prep. So if you're going to interview the Prime Minister, the Chief Minister, the Premier, right? You prep for him. Okay, this is what, the Premier is coming. He's the man with all he should know just about everything. So you sit down before and you prep and you say, look, talk to some people. What would you want me to ask the Premier? Get some serious questions. But you yourself cannot be there just as in an empty space. You got to be at the top of your game consistently, and your research must come into play. Your research, you could see, I could sit and listen to interviews, and I know if that person is prepared, if that person has done any work, any research, simply by the way they ask the questions and the probing that they do or they don't do. I know, I could say yes, you're on track, you're getting somewhere, you're going. And you ask the questions 4 or 5 different ways. Then when you see, the public now will decide. If the politician he's backpedaling, he's dodging. That's not for me to decide as a journalist. That's for them, the public. And that is how you do it. But you have to prepare yourself. And freedom of expression comes with responsibility. You cannot, and I can't say this enough, you cannot just go on radio and TV and whatever and just be spouting out things about people, especially things that are untrue, could hurt their profession, could hurt their family, could bring them, could cause them security issues, mental stress and anguish. You've got to be careful in what you do.
But people don't understand.
And what you see, it's serious. We take this, a lot of us, or some of us take this thing for just a joke. That is just a joke that, you know, and you can't just be calling in any old body off the road, any wash me foot and come.
Experts.
And just have them mouthing off things that they don't know anything about. They're no experts
Yeah.
in it. You know, they might hear something or have some little knowledge in it, and they mouthing off as though they're experts. And you don't challenge them. You must challenge. The challenge is, that's where the good journalist, that's what the work of a good journalist, he challenges.
Yeah.
You're not going to get away. You make a statement, then you're listening. As you're interviewing, you're listening. You're spending more time listening to what is being said than coming the follow-up. And you challenge. Mr. Premier, you said this. But a year ago you were saying this. What has caused the change? What has changed between last year and this year? You said this. You would have done your research so you could quote. You said this. This is what you said, Mr. Premier. Okay? But this year, in a statement you made just 2 weeks ago, you said this. Very similar statement. Why?
Yeah.
Why is this? In a year, why, you know, have you flipped? What has happened? What has changed? You know, have you had a change of heart, a change of mind? Has something? And you probe.
Right.
He may have changed for whatever reason. He may have changed because circumstances have changed. He's gone into a different... But the public need to know that. And this is the public expect you now to pull him out. Pull him out. Hold his feet to the fire. Hold him accountable. That's your job. You're not, you know, you're not doing anything untoward. You're doing your work. And that the public expects you as their voice, as their ear,
Right.
to do just that. But you must do it honestly. You must be fair. You must be balanced. You must be well researched. You must be well prepped. And you get that. And get the balance in there. Get the balance. Get other people with other opinions. Get as many opinions coming in. Seek out people who can offer that balance. You know, you don't want it a one-sided thing. You want to hear, you know, you want diverse views. Let the minds contend. This is what you want, and this is how you practice and develop, and you gain the respect. People respect you and say, look, I mean, I like the guy. I think he may be with he has some political bias, but I could tell you, I mean, I think, but at the end of the day, this guy is a fair guy. He asks the right questions. He's balanced. Gets the balance in, or he tries as much as possible to get the balance in, and he leaves it. If he's going to express his opinion, he put it in a commentary.
Yeah.
And he says, look, I am doing this commentary. It's a commentary. A commentary is, in a commentary, I'm allowed to express my opinions. Don't mix the two. Don't be doing an interview what we call a straight interview, and you're mixing your opinions into it. If you want to do a commentary, say it's and you have to say it.
Yeah.
Say it before. Look, I'm gonna speak about the government of Anguilla today, but this is a commentary, and you let the listener know that in this commentary, I will be offering some of my own opinions, some of my own thoughts on this. Right? So you make it's clear, and in the commentary you repeat several times that this is a commentary. You know, but you make it very clear so the public knows, well, it's a commentary. He's allowed that latitude to offer his or her opinions.
Right.
Don't mix the two. Straight hard news that's what it is. Straight hard news.
Listen,
You don't put in your opinions don't come in that. It's just straight news.
I'll tell you. Listening to
that's-
Keith, you can understand why I was so nervous when I announced in my previous life. You know, I wear many hats, and so in my previous life when I decided to dabble into politics, and I remember sitting with my team and sweating. Prepping for this interview because I knew it was not going to be easy. There were some interviews that I can tell you, I went with my team, I said to my team, I could walk through that. But I know when I was going to Keith, I felt like I better have everything because I know that it was not going to be simply a sham of an interview.
Because
And
I would have gone and I would have looked up everything on you, where you were born, where you went to school, your associations, what groups. I would have looked at any comments you would have made publicly, any
My Facebook
newspaper
post.
articles, your Facebook post, what
See
you
what-
might have
see what
said.
I'm
See what you would have said, and I said, okay. So that is all part of my preparation. So when she comes into the studio now, I say, okay. I welcome you, sit down, and I start a probe. Well, look, Gleneva, you said this. You weren't a politician yet, you weren't running, but, do you still hold to this? Are these things you still hold to? How will this shape your political career? Would you make adjustments now because you're on the political stage? I know you've been very vocal. Would you still be very vocal on women's issues and the issue of discrimination and so on and so forth? So that comes with your preparation and your research. You have to be prepared. So if she's coming, you've got to prepare for her. Not to come and just ask some soft soak things and just throw little flash questions,
And
you
then
have to go deep.
taking
go deep.
all kind of
You have to go
comments and stuff
Yeah.
in the moment and not even checking those
You have
things.
to check them. You have to
Yes.
check. You have to be clear in your mind precisely. So, Gleneva is coming. What am I going to ask her? What do I need to ask her?
Yeah.
And you think about your questions properly, and you have them all there. And you get into her, and because people want that. People like not just the surface questions that you answer yes, no. People want to know more.
Yeah.
Who's Gleneva? What has she done? Is she a suitable? Is she a fit person? Are there any skeletons in the closet that the people ought to know before they decide to invest their confidence in her and so on? So you got to do those kind of things. You have to do those things.
That exact question.
I remember asking, are there any skeletons in your closet that we should know about now? You're running for public office, right? And once the people invest in you and they decide to vote for you, you're there, right? Except you decide to resign and walk away or whatever. You're there. They can't stop you anymore. You've been elected. Are there anything that the people should know about? This is the time. Tell the people, look, I may have done this or that. I'm not too proud of this, but and leave it to them. And they, and people, the public appreciates this. You're honest. You're above board, and people have a greater feel for you. You're a human being. We all make mistakes and so on, but you come clean. You come clean from up front, from the outset, and say, look, I may have had this in my past, but I've moved on.
Yeah.
I've had time to think about it. Things have been repaired. And this is the new Gleneva. And you move. But a good journalist would do that. Those are the kind of things you do, and people appreciate you.
Where do you want to see journalism, all aspects of it, the citizens' journalism, radio, television, on the local scene?
I want people to be responsible. I want people to, as I've been saying, to really plan, to research and prepare well. And bear in mind that you can do a lot of damage to your country and its citizens if you're not well informed. You as the journalist, as the contributor, as the host, you can do a lot of damage. You can do more good than bad. You think you're doing good, but you're doing more damage. So you've got to spend time in preparation. You can't just run into a studio, open a microphone and say, talk. You've got to prepare. You've got to prepare your hosts, the people who are coming in. You have to tell them, look, this is serious business that we're doing here. We have an audience of the world and we cannot mess up. We can't, So prepare yourself. Spend time and go through the stuff, before you spout it up there. Check and fact check. And even after the broadcast, still, call people and, get assessment. Analyze what you've done. Bounce it off of people here and regional, global, and say, look, what you thought. Yeah. How could I have done this? What could I have done better?
Yeah.
So, and you keep sharp, but be sharp. You got to be on top of your game. Be sharp. And give everybody a fair shakedown. Don't maintain this for that, and because you might be friendly too when you come, you give them a salt. Give everybody a fair shake. Do the work. and make sure you shake them. But practice and practice and practice. Set high standards for yourself.
Right.
Set high standards. And if you don't know, please just ask. Ask somebody who knows. And there are lots of people out there, media experts, media professionals, who can help, who can offer to help you. If you need the training, they can suggest areas you could get the training. And if you plan to make media your full-time professional, this is what you want to get into, please, for heaven's sake, get training, get professional training. It's very important. That is what's going to keep you. Because when the tough times come, and the swell start to come over the bow, and things get rough, this is what's going to keep you. You're grounded because you're grounded fundamentally from the outset.
Right.
Right? And once you have that initial grounding, the good grounding, the rest of it is a piece of cake. You just build on it and you improve. The media is changing, you move with the times, you get up to speed, but you never forget the basic tenets of decency, responsibility, being objective as you can. Objective is, as you can. It's objective. Be balanced, be fair. Don't be afraid. Tackle tough subjects, ask tough questions, probe. Dig deep, go down. Research, investigate. Investigative journalism, which is my favorite.
Yeah, but you can't try that one out there.
Which is my favorite.
I hear a lot of people call themselves investigative journalists.
You gotta be careful. You have to know what you're doing.
You
have to know what you're doing.
I'm gonna leave
Going out and and fetching something and say, that's not investigative journalism. It's much more than that.
I want to.
It's a lot deeper, and it's hard. Take it from me, as someone who've done it and continue to do it. It's hard work. It could be very, very, very tricky. It could be it is very dangerous.
Yes.
You could go into some areas that sometimes yeah. And the other thing, to know the laws of your country as it relates to broadcasting.
And the most basic level, Keith, is not gossip.
No.
And I think we need to start there. It's not gossip.
No, it's not about gossip. I don't. That's a word I don't. That's not one of the words in my vocabulary about gossip. A serious stuff, and I take it very seriously.
Okay.
You see me operating in journalism, it's a serious. You see two sides of the guy. When I'm into my work, it's when I'm just casually relaxing. But I take this job seriously. I don't fool around. When I'm in doubt, I leave out and I find out. If I'm not clear, if I don't have that down pat, I'm gonna hold it, which I've done. I've held many big stories. I've gotten information from my multitude of sources, high level information, but you have to know how to treat it. That's another thing, treatment of sensitive and high level information. Care for your sources, always protecting your sources. Because if you lose your sources, you're dead. As a journalist, you're finished. So you protect them to the hilt. Right? Your trusted sources. These are people who when they tell you something or they give you something, say, look, you can go to church with it. You don't have to second guess. But those people you protect at all cost. If it even means going to jail, protecting your sources. And I've had instances of that in my own country. Taken before a judge and been asked to reveal my sources, and I respectfully declined to do that. Because doing that, if I reveal my sources, I'm dead. I'm finished as a journalist. Because these people trust me with sensitive, high-level information. And I can take that information, extrapolate what I want from that information, put that information out without in any way you having to pointing a finger back to my source. But it's treatment of information. That you get something and it's juicy, it's hot, and you run with it and you only for it to fly back in your face, for you to be hammered by a savvy lawyer. Lawyer let a bomb in your face and your treatment of the information. You can use it, you can extrapolate. And this again comes from being properly trained, properly researched, and know what you're doing. There are lots of people flying around, and as you say, want to be journalists or want to do this, and they're not just making a mess of the profession. And I said this very openly. I said this without any fear of favor, and anybody who knows me knows I'm a straight talker.
Right.
Just messing up the good name of this noble profession that many of us who've been in it for, like me, over 40 years, who've practiced in it and have developed and honed our skills through tough times and good times, going through the mill and,
Right.
practicing it the old-fashioned way. Now you're coming into this new era and having to change and, but still maintaining to the basic principles, and they have not changed. With all the new emerging social media and citizens journalism and whatnot, the basic things remain the same for every journalist everywhere in the world. It doesn't change. Once you're grounded in those, you can flick here, you can move.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
You can move.
no, wait. Let me handle this for you. Let me handle this for you.
Mindful of the time,
Yes.
Ivan. And
We're going into
because
another episode.
I will tell you, because I am sitting here and I'm thinking, this is a masterclass.
Yeah.
I do not want it to end.
No, it can't end because we got some stuff.
So
to
we
touch.
got
So we got 2 areas we're gonna touch. So we're gonna put this one here to bed right now for this, and we're gonna take what we get in the next one because there are some things I want him to go into. But
I
you have
think
the
we
time?
can. Yeah, we have the time that we can finish up in this one episode.
You think so?
Yeah.
Like, go right ahead.
I can always
Okay,
come
good.
back.
No, we have you, and we are going to continue
Yes.
right where we are. So
Okay.
we have some time.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Good. So
Yeah, the
I
other areas.
wanted to switch a little bit
Yes,
and
please.
speak about government information system. And I spent a lot of time speaking with Ivan, and I know we started in the beginning and speaking about the role of the PRO, and behind the scenes we have a whole lot of conversations because I spoke about the perception of that role, and that I feel that role is bigger than any political party that may be in power, but that government as a whole deserves the opportunity to have information put out there and not be skewed politically.
And every time you say government, people think about the ministers. Government is
Yes.
the people,
Like,
That,
constant
the
break
entire
it down.
system.
the entire system.
Yeah.
The people, the ministers, the PSs, it's a whole system.
I keep telling
But people
them
just see government, you hear government information, and you see just the
And,
ministers.
and they even forget the
It's wider than
opposition
that.
is part of government.
It is government.
And I had to break that down.
It
for
is
bosses.
government.
So it's not just elected
No,
persons,
no.
it is the entire,
It is the entire
system.
system.
Yeah.
And so when we speak about government information services, where do you see your role, and where do you see or envision Anguilla going in being able to get that information? Oh, because for me that was the reason I took this.
Yeah, well, you started with
position.
this. You started with the progress report. That's a start. With the aim to move into other areas. Government information systems, as I know it throughout the Caribbean and other parts of the world, normally comprise staffing. You have a number. It's not a one-man or two-member thing. To do it well, to do
Yeah.
it properly. In most of the Caribbean territories, off the top of my head, you're averaging about 5 persons.
Easily.
Because you have your videographers, you have people who go out, you have people who do your scripting, you have your production people, people who work beside editing, and so on and so forth. So it's a team, it's a whole team. Here you're starting out very small with the hope of eventually. So down the road, the establishment will have to look at this thing in its totality, getting people trained again.
Yeah.
Trained people. So your videographers, your editors, people who work behind the scenes, and so on. People who do upfront and camera, people who do voiceovers, and who do the final production. So you put out your final production. But it takes time, and you have to have a clear vision of where you want to take it. Again, it's an expansion of putting out, 'cause you have video, you have audio, you have pictures and the works.
Print and electronic press.
Electronic press. All that stuff comes into it. So it can't be a one man. As it is now, you have Ivan and you assisting. You got to move beyond that. You need at least another 2, 3, 4 persons coming into that. The government information systems, you have the government information system as a standalone. When I say standalone, it's there as a block. You have your government-owned radio, not government-owned, the people-owned broadcast stations. So you have the radio arm and you have this other arm of the GIS. Some of them have merged, where you find the GIS or the GIU merging into the broadcast, or some of them stand alone. It's a question of what you want, but you have merged. You have this the working between the two. You have the radio arm and the GIS working together. So you might have staff who duplicate, who are multifaceted, who work across in some of the Caribbean territories. So it's for Anguilla to decide what and how it wants to do it. But it's something that I've been talking about. It's something that's very welcome. It's a way of getting government information out there to the people. I've even suggested that in each ministry there's a point person who's responsible for information, who would collate all the information, comes into a central area and just put out. Like each minister, in some countries, each minister has his or her own press secretary who deals with that aspect. But it's fed. The information is fed into the GIS, and you have an outpool. So for weekend, you might have the week from the GIS where you collate all the information. But stuff is constantly put out. They have the websites and you have material. If I want the budget speeches from 2004, I could go here. Everything is accessed one spot. Someone from overseas wants some information. Instead of running to an government office, they go to the GIS, because all the information is stored here. It's a repository for all of governments.
And but
again, you need people. You need trained people, not just people.
Yes.
You need trained people who understand how the whole thing works.
And I must say, I'd appreciate when I started. I don't know if you remember the first meeting that we had. Came over to Radio Anguilla and I said,
right, that was a very interesting discussion.
This is where we need to go. So we have those prepared it for the premier and the team, and everybody's on board. I can tell you, everybody's on board. But is the steps being taken? Because guess what?
That's it.
We can't stop to do it. We have to do it while doing all this stuff.
But this is a start.
This is a start,
and you're working your way in. It would have to be budgeted for. You have
yes, that's where we're at right now.
You have to get people trained. One, you have to get people interested.
Yes.
You have to get youngsters who are into the social media thing, who you can interest to come across into that. Train them properly and let them go. Let them be creative and let the creative juices flow and get it. But this is a start. You have to start somewhere. So don't feel that you've been pushed aside. Just look at it in a positive way, that this is a start of something to come. But continue to push the powers that be that look, hey, this is important. And it is important.
Yeah,
it is important. A lot of things happening in Anguilla. There's just go, and there's no repository. You can't go back and find it. I can't come 10 years down the road, somebody wants something. You're doing a special or some broadcast entity wants something, you could go back to your GIS.
You know what
you have this bit of footage from when the Queen came here in 19 whatever, boom, here it is. So all of that is stored and kept and backed up on the cloud and so on, and you have it. But it comes through your GIS.
And it kind of serves almost like a national archive.
Yes, it is. That's what it is.
Where you have that information.
Because everything that happens, and as I said, government is not just the ministers, it's total, it's the entire country. It's there.
And to be entirely honest, and I'll be very blunt, that's the vision.
Yeah.
And it's not everybody within the different roles. And I'm not talking about the ministerial level, I'm talking about even down would appreciate that vision. And we're being
but you have to get the buy-in.
Yeah, but you have to get the buy-in. So that's part of it too.
You can't be trumping it down on people.
Because they've been doing something for particularly for so long. So when I came with my private sector training and my knowledge of things, and I'm like telling having discussions with my PS and my PAS, and we're talking about, Ivan, we really need to standardize every department in government and how things go. Look, because it's there's no reason why, have your identity, your roles and stuff, but there's no reason why on the global scale, communications from, for instance, the Ministry of Finance should look strikingly different from communications from the Ministry of Infrastructure.
True.
It's government, you understand? And I had a situation recently where I heard like a news report or something from another island, and they were pulling clippings from what we're doing here.
Precisely.
And that's the responsibility that you have.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So like, and for me, like,
were you credited? Did they credit you?
I didn't even check for that.
Yeah, you must check for that.
I must check for that. Yeah.
They ought to have credited you.
I didn't even check, but I'm saying when I came in and I said, we can't just be doing it rinky dinky. You can't, because like if I'm uploading pictures, like you see the pictures on Facebook and stuff, I load all those pictures in HD, because in the absence of a GIS website, people would go there for content. So you can't have those things blurry.
Must be quality.
It must be quality.
High quality.
It must be quality. So this is the things that we're getting at. I'm excited about where it's going. To be entirely honest, and one thing Gleneva always personally agree with it. At the end of the day, when Ivan is gone and Gleneva is gone, this is supposed to continue.
That's correct. Yeah. Continuity.
I've said that. I
and too often we see that. Yes. Ivan is gone, Gleneva is gone, it stops. Yeah, there must be continuity. Let it continue.
Yeah. I always want to make the distinction. Ivan says it, and he says it in jest, but progress report should be bigger than either of us. I would love to see progress report continue no matter who is sitting in this seat.
Yes.
Because I think what it is intended to do, even if we haven't reached our full potential, what it's intended to do is too important to just go by the wayside.
And you see, and I said government in its totality. So I'm looking here that members of the opposition
they've
come
been
here
invited.
and invited and sit. And they're part of government.
Correct.
You see, people just see, and I have to emphasize this, as people have this misconception that it's just about government, the ministers who serve in the cabinet and so on. No.
And you can see our guest list.
And people from outside, even common people, everyday people, they're part of, it's a collective.
Yes.
And this is where you show that you're bridging those gaps by bringing people, different perspectives, different thinking. Because they're all here. It's all here in Anguilla. They're all part of the Anguillan community. Yeah. So you draw from the community, and that is what sustains and carries your program and make it so interesting.
Yeah.
Where you're hearing all these different views, and you take from that. People learn from that, and people see things differently. It's fascinating. Progress report is open up a fascinating thing. Once it's done properly, you get your content, you get the people, you diversify.
You told me that from the jump. Yeah.
You get it and you pull it all together. Yeah. It's not about no political thing. Politics has its place. I often say that there's a place for politics, hardcore politics. But there's a space, a bigger space.
For governance.
And the people in its totality, getting everybody on board.
Yes.
You see, and this is what I'm all about, getting everybody on board. Tot Monson and Bagai.
I have not heard that since my Spanish class. This has been, Ivan, I don't know, I've given some leeway of some time, and I'm not sure that the radio stations appreciate when I do that. But this has been such a riveting conversation, and I knew I was going to step away and leave this space feeling much more enlightened. And I had high expectations for this episode, and as usual,
I hope I'm satisfied.
As you did not disappoint.
I hope I didn't disappoint you. I tried my best.
You did not, and that means you're going to be back, correct?
I will be back.
We have some things.
There's some other things I would like to get into as well, and really show some stuff.
Okay, awesome. All right. I like the sound of that.
I'd like to come back
so. Thank you so much for being here with us, for sitting with us, for I don't even want to say this was a conversation. I feel like today was a teaching moment.
It was a conversation.
I feel schooled.
I love conversations.
And I really appreciated this conversation. Thank you for being here with us. Ivan, as always, this was
another.
I feel this goes beyond another great episode.
Okay, this has been an excellent, extremely excellent episode of Progress Report. Mr. Keith Stonegraves, I'm humbled every time I meet you. I leave with knowledge. I feel empowered, and I'm not just saying that.
Peace be unto you, my brother.
And I appreciate you on so many levels. I know I can always pick up the phone and call you, and if there's something that I need to be checked with, you've called me. So I appreciate that.
I try.
And you said something that I want.
Enjoy doing the people's business.
Good. I want everybody listening and viewing to understand that at the most basic and foundational level of what we do, everybody that has a cell phone, everybody that has an ear, a listening ear, your own ear, what you say, what you do should be done responsibly.
Absolutely.
And if there was anything that should be taken away from today's updates and conversations from the Government Information Service, is that we all need to be a bit more
don't shut up. Speak truth to power. Don't shut up. Talk. But be responsible. It's not about shutting up people. You know, we live in a democratic society. We have freedom of speech to a limit. It's not infinite.
Yes.
But be responsible. Know your laws. Know what you can say, and know how far you can push the envelope.
Right.
But be respectful. Be respectful and be responsible.
All right. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Progress Report.